is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Climb the Pocket YouTube channel. I'm Steve Catalano. I'm with Ryan McGinley, and this is Battle in the Trenches, Week 11 edition. We are back with the starts and sits for you this week to help you out, help you win your fantasy football matchups as we approach the playoff run. Ryan, how are you doing today? I'm really excited to be back.
I'm doing great, Steve. And this last week reminded me that, one, the NFL product is great, and two, you never know what's going to happen. I had a fantasy matchup where I started A.J. Brown and Kalen Ballage amongst my terrible team against Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Aaron Rodgers, and Mark Andrews, and I ended up winning. So anything can happen in the fantasy realm. So I'm excited to get back into Week 11 because we're getting really down towards the end. And it's kind of sad, but it's almost playoff time.
It's going quick. You can check out that post. He posted a picture of that matchup. It was actually pretty crazy. I think your caption was this powerhouse against this kind of put together team. Yeah, it was a terrible looking team, but you got the victory. You can check them out on Twitter at Bootleg Fantasy. I'm at Steve 2.0, and go check us out climbthepocket.com for some good weekly articles, and of course subscribe to the channel, like the video. We really appreciate the support. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into last week real quick. Week 10 accuracy. Our picks last week, we were not good on QB. We were 25%. But the rest of them, wide receiver, running back, tight end, we were pretty good. We got 5 out of 8 running back. We got 6 out of 8 wide receiver, and 3 out of 4 for tight end. So let's try to do a little better on the quarterback and keep the consistency going on the other positions. So I'm pretty happy with those results besides the quarterback. But I think you'll agree that quarterback is kind of it's kind of like the next closest thing to tight end as far as a crapshoot. It's all about game script and how it's going to go, because the team could have really good pass defense, but if that team's playing from behind the whole time, they're just going to have a lot more opportunity to throw the ball and probably be more successful.
No, 100%. We realize that there's some quarterbacks that we expected to not throw the ball at all. I was not expecting Dak Prescott to throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. I figured the game was going to be a grinded out game, but we live and we learn, Steve.
Yeah, that was a bad one altogether for that game, especially with the quarterbacks. But without further ado, let's get into the news and the doctor's office this week. Tyler Lockett's banged up in that game last night, but first of all, that game last night was the game of the year, no doubt. I think so. It went to full length to overtime, divisional matchup. In my opinion, top 2 teams in the league, maybe top 3 if you got an opinion and whatnot. But that was a very entertaining game. All fantasy implications aside, that was a great game to watch. Russell Wilson proved to he's the MVP. He showed some faults in the later half of the game with some turnovers late. Definitely cost his team, but they ended up getting the victory. But I definitely enjoyed that.
Yeah, we've been spoiled the last 2 games. The Cowboys-Vikings game was tremendous. Yep. That went down to the wire. And then, last night's game, I was hoping with a fantasy matchup locked up in my one league that I could just go to bed and just not have to deal with watching football for a night just because I don't breathe. But that game was so good. I was up past midnight East Coast time because, every time you thought the game was about to end, something else happened, and it was great. Russell Wilson did what he was supposed to do, and then he did what he doesn't do, and then I loved it.
It left us with some questions.
For sure.
I had Chris Carson and Coleman in that game, and my opponent had Emmanuel Sanders, and he was up pretty big, so a big opportunity opened for me to win the game when Emmanuel Sanders went down with that injury. And Coleman didn't get used in overtime at all, which kind of cost me. I lost by 2 points, so definitely sucked, but at least I got the points. Points for is really big in fantasy. But George Kittle also missed that game. We saw a bunch of shots of him up in the booth, kind of going crazy. So we didn't know he was going to miss last week. It was kind of a last, weekend kind of thing of him being doubtful. So he missed that game. And then Matt Stafford, kind of a late week scratch with broken backbones. So that's kind of scary. We don't know. We've seen Carson Wentz with something like this in the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, it's probably a little sore.
It hurts.
But it's something that can linger and something that makes you question.
For sure.
He could maybe not play the rest of the year. We don't know how it is. It's one of those things that it probably will never heal. This season. Yeah, but is he okay to go out there and play and be safe? So. Yep. We're going to be looking out for that,
Yeah, it's the same exact issue that Wentz had last year. It sounds like he broke it early in the season, and he could manage the pain up through now, and now it seems like the pain was beyond what he wanted to play with, and that's what happened to Wentz. Wentz played 4 or 5 games on it and then realized I can't do it anymore and sat out the rest of the year. So, I mean, hopefully Matt Stafford comes back because the Lions were a solid semblance of a team.
Jeff Driscoll, he was okay, and it kind of proves that the rut that the Chicago Bears were in, even though the Bears won, they let Driscoll, make Galladay and Jones still pretty relevant and toss, 3 touchdowns.
For sure.
I thought that was pretty surprising.
Yeah, the Bears look bad defensively, and I mean, Jeff Driscoll, I don't have any great kind words to say just because, I mean,
we've already spent too much time talking about him.
Yeah, but, we'll move on.
All right, and Saquon Barkley banged up in that game. Probably one of the worst stat lines for any stud this year besides dropping a goose egg like Mike Evans. But 13 carries, 1 yard, that is just... It's not going to cut it for the first overall pick in many, many leagues, Saquon Barkley, and he obviously gets looked at by the medical team after the game. Coaching staff says he should be good to go, so we're not thinking he's going to miss any time, but be on the lookout for Wayne Gallman in your league if he's not picked up on anyone's team, and Barkley ends up missing. Let's go ahead and get to the starts and sits. We'll go ahead and start with the quarterback position, and my starts for the week. I'm starting Dak at Detroit. Dak coming off another big game, even though they lost. He tossed a bunch of touchdowns and 400 yards. Going against Detroit, who just played against Chicago and let Mitch Trubisky pass for 3 touchdowns. So I think that's just all we need to say as far as keep Dak in your lineup. Going on the road against Detroit, not really a threat. And then starting Derek Carr versus Cincinnati. That Cincinnati team has taken the spot for the worst team in the NFL. So start any player against Cincinnati. I know we don't go over defense in this league, but I'd be willing to start the Oakland Raiders defense against Ryan Finley and the Cincinnati Bengals. So I like Carr in this game to start out big and definitely toss a few touchdowns and over 300 yards. Who are you going to start?
Yeah, so I'm going back to somebody who burned me last week.
Burned you.
I told you guys to start Phillip Rivers because, I felt like the matchup was good. He's an angry guy. I mean, I feel like he's got to produce at some point with Keenan Allen. And I'm going back to it because he's playing Kansas City. If they don't score more than, 21 points, they're going to lose by 30. So, I mean, they need to put up some points. And Phillip Rivers is going to have to throw the ball. Austin Eckler, where you been? It was the Melvin Gordon show last week, which was weird to me. I mean, I think he had 20-plus carries, only had 70 rushing yards, but he scored. And not great for Austin Eckler fans who the first play of the game was a 23-yard ball to Austin Eckler down the seam where he was in the slot. Looked like a good idea to continue for the rest of the game.
Maybe,
they didn't.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Eckler found the end zone at the end, salvaging any type of terrible fantasy matchup. But Phillip Rivers got to be gunslinging this week. I'm also starting Josh Allen against the Miami Dolphins. He had 2 rushing touchdowns this last week, and the Dolphins need to realize that they've won 2 straight games, and that's not good for what they're trying to do. They need to get back on the schneid a little bit, and I expect them to get blown out by Josh Allen because the Bills kind of need to win a couple games as well. So let's go Josh Allen.
He's been a tough one to kind of figure out, though, 100%. Josh Allen. He hasn't been a high yardage thrower. He just had his highest passing yard game, and kind of salvaged his day. Not salvaged, but he got in the end zone twice on the ground. So that definitely helped his fantasy day. I know I started guys like Jamison Winston over him and kind of got burned by that. But Josh Allen is kind of if he's not running, if he's not picking up rushing yards and getting in the end zone on the ground, he's not really, there's not a lot of weapons on that team to toss touchdowns to. So it's kind of risky. I mean, they're going against Miami. Miami's been on the up and up, but it's still Miami, and they're still a very bad football team. Let's go ahead and go to the QB sits. I'm sitting Jared Goff versus Chicago, strictly based off of just Jared Goff has been really bad lately. The last 16 games he's played going into last season, he's been really, really bad. And I think that actually overlaps into the game where he played against Chicago late last season, and he had one of his worst career starts ever. So I think Chicago, coming off that win against Detroit at home, I think they travel across the country, and I think the game's pretty close, but I think they kind of keep Jared Goff in that passing game in check. I'm also sitting Matt Ryan at Carolina. Matt Ryan and the Falcons were able to go into New Orleans and somehow win that game pretty decidingly against Drew Brees and the Saints. So That was very surprising to me, but I don't see that continuing this week. I think Carolina, coming off that game against the Packers, that tough loss, I think they're going to pick up that defense at home, where they've been pretty good all season. I didn't expect them to do too good against the Packers, who don't really turn the ball over too much. But I think Matt Ryan can definitely toss some interceptions, and they're missing Devante Freeman, so they're going to be backup running back out there and whatnot. I think there's going to be opportunities for some sacks and possibly a couple turnovers. So I'm putting Matt Ryan on my bench this week.
I mean, it hurts to hear my hometown boy, Matt Ryan, on the bench, but I can't argue with it. And another hometown kind of guy for me I'm sitting this week is Carson Wentz. I mean, he's playing the New England Patriots, who've got 2 weeks to prepare for him. If that doesn't sound terrible to anybody that has Carson Wentz as their starting quarterback, you should get your ears checked, because that sounds terrible to me. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is going to cover the best wide receiver on the Eagles, and I mean, is that Alshon Jeffrey? They're going to have him on Zach Ertz. That's time to tell.
Name the worst quarterback you'd start over Carson Wentz.
Ooh,
kind of on the spot, but name a bad quarterback. Would you start him?
I might start Jimmy G over Wentz.
He's going against Arizona. Last game he played,
he tossed 4
touchdowns,
Wentz.
so I'd definitely start Jimmy G.
I'm not starting Kyle Allen. I might start Kyle Allen over
The
Wentz.
way he's playing against Atlanta, I think I'm starting Kyle Allen.
I think I'm starting Kyle Allen
over
too,
Carson Wentz,
which stinks because Carson's my boy.
He's down there in the 20s for sure.
And Carson hasn't thrown for 300 yards in like weeks.
Yep.
And that's against some bad teams. So I'm sitting Carson. And a guy that I was going to ride for this year, I'm sitting as well. I'm sitting Baker Mayfield, because don't get tricked into starting Baker after a solid game.
Don't do it.
Baker, dude, he doesn't know what to do out there. Against a good team, against Pittsburgh, whose defense has been lights out the last couple of weeks, the reason why they're in a playoff run, they're going to lock him up. And if you don't think Minkah Fitzpatrick isn't going to make another great play at some point during this game, you're nuts. And Baker Mayfield, he's too sporadic for me. He's not accurate enough. They finally figured out to throw to Odell Beckham Jr., but, I mean, it wasn't very effective this last week. So, sit Baker.
Yeah, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Baker, he has a good game every couple games, going against Buffalo and kind of a bad matchup for Buffalo on the road. And they end up losing that game. But I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. Pittsburgh's been on the up and up. They win 4 in a row. Their defenses look good. So I'm putting Baker on the bench for sure. Let's go over to the running back position, everyone's favorite position. I'm going to start Matt Breida. As long as he's healthy against Arizona, we saw what he did 2 weeks ago against Arizona. He was the main producer in that game with Tevin Coleman kind of, not producing for your team. I see Matt Breida doing the same thing. I see them running the ball a lot. And a guy like Raheem Mostert, I'm not really worried about him. He got a lot of work in Monday night's game, but that's because Breida was out. I don't think Mostert's really a threat to Coleman or Breida's workload as long as one of those two backs, or both those backs, are in the game. So I like Matt Breida versus Arizona. And then another guy you're probably grabbing off your waiver wire is Brian Hill. And I know I said I didn't like these Falcons going against Carolina, but I think he's going to be able to, to handle most of the workload as a 3-down back with Devante Freeman out, Ito Smith not. He's on injured reserve. So Brian Hill is going to have to, get some work out of the passing game. I think he's going to be able to handle the load. The team already came out and said that they're pretty confident that he can handle that load. So I think he's going to see a lot of work, especially if Atlanta can keep this game close, stay in the game. I don't see why he can't see 20 touches in this game. So pick up Brian Hill and start him if you're, if you got one of your running backs like Aaron Jones or something on a bye.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with at least one of those guys, but
all right,
you can read my thoughts on Brian Hill on the website, climbthepocket.com. My week 11 waiver wire. I give you my thoughts on him. So he might be the guy that I like. He might be the guy I dislike. So there's that.
Go check it out, guys. climbthepocket.com.
Yeah, a plug inside the video I'm in. So, but I'm starting James White against the Philadelphia Eagles. And you say, Ryan, they're great against the run. Well, James White doesn't run the ball.
Nope.
And Steve, I'd give you $5 if you could name a Philadelphia Eagles linebacker. Exactly. You can't, because it's Duke Riley, who was traded to us from the 1-7 whatever they are Falcons. We're in week 11.
Stud. Duke Riley.
2-7. Whatever. He's terrible. We got Kamugruje Hill, and
That's
we've got
name.
Nate Gary, who one time threw a ball at I think Josh Allen in college, and that's all I got on him. So the linebackers are brutal, especially in coverage. So I expect it to be a James White game, not a Sony Michel game. Also, I'm starting David Montgomery against the Rams because I think that the Bears are going to smack the Rams in the mouth this week. I'm feeling it. I know Aaron Donald's in the middle. It doesn't matter because DeMont is finally unleashed. They cut Mike Davis. I think they realized that whatever they were doing the first 4 or 5 weeks offensively was bad. Mitchell Trubisky's bad. And I think the defense gets to Jared Goff. So DeMont should have a short field. So David Montgomery's starting my lineups.
Yeah, I like that call. Definitely didn't have a good game last week against Detroit, but that game didn't go as planned for anyone who really knew it was going to happen. So I like David Montgomery to definitely have a bounce-back game. Let's go to the running back sits. I'm sitting your Philadelphia Eagle, Jordan Howard, versus New England.
Fair enough.
Pretty self-explanatory. You're sitting Carson Wentz. You're sitting Jordan Howard, who is a running back who kind of thrives off game script as far as, like, are they able to establish a run? Are they in this game? I see New England going up in this game. And that kind of fits like a guy like Miles Sanders, who I see him getting more work than Jordan Howard in this game, unless they somehow get down to like the 1 or 2 yard line, which doesn't happen in all games or whatnot, and they're able to just punch it in. I think Jordan Howard's a pretty risky start versus New England, and then David Johnson versus San Francisco. He's a guy that you really can't risk putting in your lineup every single week unless you don't really have a lot of options and you want to throw him at the flex. He has not been good. If you watch the game tape from just this past week, he looks really slow. He doesn't look like he's all there. He's completely different running back than he was in the beginning of the season. He's completely different running back than he was a couple seasons ago when he had that monster season with all those touchdowns and all those all-purpose yards. It's pretty sad to watch, and if you're a David Johnson owner, which I'm not, I feel for you because that's definitely pretty upsetting. A first-round pick and just turns to be like, okay, now this whole backfield is just nothing. I mean, Kenyon Drake, David Johnson, we don't know what it is. The passing game seems to be working, but why isn't David Johnson involved? Without those questions being answered, and without us seeing it on the field for a whole week with confidence that he's back, he's on your bench.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all. I mean, Jordan Howard, I know, definitely will not be touching the field for me. And David Johnson, I shared a tweet about probably a couple hours ago at this point where he got the handoff on a QB read where he was coming across the offensive line, and it looked like he was running at a slow jog. And
he looks huge. Like, he looks big and slow.
Yeah, I mean, he was explosive his rookie year. I think that was 2015, 2016, something like that. I remember him torching the Eagles for like 200 yards on either a Sunday night or a Thursday night or a Monday night. He looked great. And he's still only 26 or 7, so he's right in the prime of his career. He got that contract, but he's got a ton of competition. Kenyon Drake, I think, is going to be the lead back, and Chase Edmonds is a change of pace back. So what does that make David Johnson? Left out.
Who are you starting out of those two guys, Howard or Johnson? Johnson versus San Francisco.
I'm starting
Howard versus New England. Howard.
David Johnson got the rare 0 out of a running back that got like 5 or 6 carries. How do you do that? Like, it's very tough to do.
That's how you do it.
Like, at least Saquon had a couple catches. I think he got upwards of 8 points or something like that. Like, David Johnson got 0.
Yep.
So, definitely not in my lineups. Also, I'm sitting Ron Jones against New Orleans because I don't like the optics, really. I mean, New Orleans all of a sudden has a solid defense, especially up the middle. And Peyton Barber kind of took some carries and touches away from Ron Jones last week. And Dare, I'm not sure how to say his last name, the pass catching. Yeah, dude, I'm not from Florida. I rarely see it. I know it starts with an O. He wears number 44.
Number one Bucks fan.
I get really angry when he's in the game because I want Ron Jones to be good. But
he is good. He's coming out for sure. If you're on your waivers, scoop that guy
Ron
up.
Jones is fine. He's like.
Who calls him Ron Jones? I haven't heard this one.
Because Ronald is.
You do this on this show. You shorten everyone's name. You come up with these nicknames for these guys. I like it. I'm calling him Ron Jones for now on, but it makes him sound like a washed-up news reporter.
Somebody said that he's just if you took Frank Gore's stat line and just gave it to like a young running back, and that's true. I mean, he's 20 carries, 70 yards for Ron Jones. Boom.
Yeah.
And I'm also sitting the Denver Broncos backfield, which is unfortunate because in one of my leagues I have to play Royce Freeman, but I hate the matchup. I hate it so much. The Cowboys got absolutely clamped by Minnesota last week. Zeke was 20 carries for 40 yards. That's not getting it done. Tony Pollard was non-existent. And, they split the carries up. So 10 carries for 35 yards apiece. Don't love it. So I'm sitting both of those guys, both Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman.
Coming off the bye. That's a call right there. Let's go to the wide receivers. I'm starting Jamison Crowder at Washington, and the facts are he's just been productive with Sam Darnold. 2 straight games with 80 yards and a touchdown. He's getting it done, especially in a PPR league. So he's a guy going against Washington who's not good that you can continue to put in your lineup and start with confidence. I'm also starting Mohamed Sanu against Philadelphia, and we know Philadelphia's defense, especially their secondary, is not good. Mohamed Sanu coming off 14 targets and 10 receptions out of nowhere. Now comes out with 80 yards, but obviously those 10 receptions. He has a huge PPR day. So if he can keep up even close to like 10 targets, he's a guy that you got to have in your lineup, 100%. Immediately on that Patriots offense as one of the biggest passing options, the second best passing option next to Julian Edelman. He's a guy I would want in my lineup. Obviously, Tom Brady would want to lean on the veteran, and with him and Edelman, that's 2 right there. I think that's a much better fit than Josh Gordon was in that offense for those guys. For sure. Mohamed Sanu, I want him in my lineup against Philly, and I really like the connection he's got going with Tom Brady so far.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit to hear that, but I know it's gonna happen. So
yeah.
And Sidney Jones,
come on, man,
you're
the first person. You're the first person to put your own team
and
down.
Like my thing is, I tweeted, I don't know, the week before the trade deadline that Mohamed Sanu would be the best wide receiver on the Eagles, and I got berated for it. So if the Eagles get torched by Mohamed Sanu, it's just a small moral victory that I'll just go back and like everyone's tweet that said this was a bad take. So it's a win-lose. It's both of those things. But
he's not on your team, so that's
it hurts. I wanted it, but I'm starting Curtis Samuel against the Falcons because apparently they don't like throwing to DJ Moore in the red zone, and Curtis Samuel's the touchdown scorer there, and the Falcons stink as just a team in general. I know they had the big win last week. And, I just think that they're going to have to throw the ball downfield because both teams are going to be throwing the ball left and right. DJ Moore's an obvious play for me. He's a top 15 play this week. But I think Curtis Samuel does the job for sure. I think he's upwards of 60 yards, and, he's got TD possibilities, and he's a big play threat. So Curtis Samuel's in my lineup. And I'm starting our boy, Steve. I hope you at least read the show notes to see that I'm starting Terry.
Yep.
They had a bye week. Dwayne Haskins is now the official quarterback of the Washington football team, and I think that they had to go into the bye saying, hey man, Terry McLaurin's better than everyone on our offense by far. Can we please get him the ball? And I think that he's going to have some plays drawn up for him where he gets downfield like he was in week 1 through 7 pretty much. Mm-hmm. So I think Terry McLaurin's a play because they've got to script the offense for him. Darius Geis might get some play. Adrian Peterson might get some play. But, it's going to be Terry. The offense has to run through Terry. So get him in the lineups.
I like the idea that they definitely discussed getting 100%. Terry McLaurin the ball during the bye week. It's something that they have to do. Dwayne Haskins and Terry McLaurin obviously played together in college. And I hope that Case Keenum was able to talk to McLaurin and Haskins saying, hey, this guy's good. You guys got to get the ball to him.
You guys have been boys for years now. I played with him for 7 weeks, and I figured out how good he was. Just throw him the ball.
Hey, over under 9 targets for McLaurin.
I'm as long as he gets 7+, I'm
let's
fine.
go. Yeah, let's lower it to 7.5.
7's cool with me. If he gets 9, I'm elated because he's catching at least 4 of them.
I think that's what they have to do though. They have to pepper him. He's good. He's fast. Get the ball to him.
Paul Richardson, get out of here.
He's got it gone.
Who's their tight end at this point? Chris Cooley? Throw Terry McLaurin the ball.
Yeah, man. All right. Let's go over to the wide receiver sits. I'm sitting Allen Robinson at the Rams in this game that you think the Bears are going to spank the Rams. I just don't like Robinson against Jalen Ramsey, who was able to completely shut down Juju. And Jalen Ramsey is just that guy. He is the top cornerback in the league. And wide receiver going against him, especially with Mitch Trubisky throwing him the ball, I don't think he's going to have much success. I can see like a 4 for 41 stat line kind of going on, which is a great day for any quarterback guarding a wide receiver. So I'm sitting Allen Robinson, and I'm also sitting Sammy Watkins, who hasn't been good in fantasy since week 1. So if you're just now realizing that, you probably lost a bunch of weeks if you've been starting him every single week. He's not relevant anymore as long as Tyreek Hill is on the field and Mahomes is throwing him the ball. Sammy Watkins is just kind of a team player. He's a good NFL receiver, and he's going to, be catching first downs and whatnot when it's crucial. But he's not going to get the volume that Tyreek Hill gets, the volume Kelsey gets, even the big play shots that McCole Hardman gets his one shot a game and somehow makes into fantasy relevance. And gives Patrick Mahomes 80 yards and a touchdown to make his stat line look super awesome. But, you just can't risk putting Watkins in your lineup, especially at this part of the season.
I appreciate you padding our stats there, Steve. We need a couple percentage points. So, yeah, sit Sammy Watkins. He's a bum.
For sure. You're right. That was definitely a cakewalk. But I know some people that are still asking questions about Sammy Watkins. And for me, he's a drop. He's not a guy you're going to – I think if Tyreek Hill went down – If Tyreek Hill went down, you got Hardman, DeMarcus Robinson, and Watkins. I'd rather have Hardman, true. And even Robinson was good.
Byron Pringle, get him the ball.
All these guys were better when Tyreek Hill was out and Sammy Watkins was in the lineup at the same time. So, Sammy Watkins is a drop, guys. He's a drop.
And I got some pretty spicy sits, actually, Steve. I don't know if you got all the way down the document to prep, but I'm sitting Christian Kirk this week because he's playing San Francisco, and before Tyler Lockett went out, similar game to Christian Kirk, as I've mentioned in previous shows. He didn't look great. Obviously the unfortunate injury, we see that he's recovering pretty solid in the hospital. I'm not sure if he's been discharged yet, but that's a side note. Christian Kirk, huge game last week, 3 touchdowns. That's great. He's now the focal point of one of the best defenses in the NFL in their game plan. So don't expect anything like that out of Christian Kirk this week. Also, I'm sitting Devante Parker. Saw a little factoid that the offense needs to run through Devante Parker. You don't think the Buffalo Bills are gonna, read Roto World every once in a while and see what's going on? And also, Josh Rosen might be the starter, and he's terrible. So sit Devante Parker because no one on their offense is absolutely good. They're all terrible. Everyone's gross. So sit everybody.
Christian Kirk sliced me up this week.
100%. My dad played against him, and he was yelling at the television for like 4 hours.
Bad. Let's head over to the tight ends real quick because we don't need to spend too much time on them. I'm starting Greg Olsen, who was just peppered with targets against the Green Bay Packers, and a very good game script for him to receive those targets. They were playing from behind. I like this game to be very competitive against Atlanta, and I like what Greg Olsen is developing with Kyle Allen. So I like him to be a reliable guy to get you like 6-7 catches this week. And I'm sitting O.J. Howard. I'd made the call last week and it paid off. He had a pretty good stat line, but he was going against Arizona, and that is the only time you will find O.J. Howard on my team. He's back on the waiver for sure. Never starting him again this week, and I think that's a 100% call you should make. Don't let last week fool you. It was the Cardinals. They are very bad against tight ends, and we know that. It is week 11, guys. They're really bad. So
facts.
Start everyone against Arizona, but don't start O.J. Howard.
Exactly. And I'm personally starting Gerald Everett against the Bears, even though I said that they're going to get smacked. For some odd reason, Jared Goff thought that all the targets that were going to Cooper Kupp in the first 9 weeks of the season should go to Gerald Everett last week. Don't know what happened there, but Gerald Everett should still see a healthy amount of targets. And I'm sitting Kyle Rudolph. Don't let the 2 touchdowns from the 1 yard line bait you into starting Kyle Rudolph. He's in the offense because Adam Thielen is not. All the eyes were on Stephon Diggs, and Kyle Rudolph was just a guy that Kirk Cousins knew could catch the ball in the end zone. So
this should be his role, though.
Yeah, 100%. I think he should be the slow tight end that catches a touchdown every once in a while. Like I dig that. But
those are good catches.
100%. Both of those catches were sick. But don't expect it this week. If he scores 2 more touchdowns, I don't know what I'm going to do with Stephon Diggs on my team. Just throw him 1 time in the red zone, please. No. So that's my thought.
that passing offense is pretty hard to figure out.
For sure.
Especially with Thielen out. I mean, Diggs is not getting the volume he was getting with Thielen there. And Rudolph's catching touchdowns now. We don't really know what's going on. So it's kind of a passing game. It's hard to trust. But anyway, that's going to be our starts and sits. We're just going to go to a quick bonus discussion. Just quick take. We're going to go over our top 4 teams as if we were a college football playoff committee, but for the NFL. My top 4 are the Seattle Seahawks. Mm-hmm. All right. Number 2 is the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
I was very impressed with that whole game last night.
All right.
Number 3 is the Baltimore Ravens. I really like what they're doing. Lamar Jackson's a cheat code. Yep. Yeah, go ahead and open your eyes. That's fine. Their defense is picking up. They're healthy. Lamar Jackson's playing very well. And number 4 is the New England Patriots. Now, it's very hard to keep the Green Bay... Ryan, your eyes are really lit up right now, but that's
Steve.
okay. Hey, it's okay. My number 5 is Green Bay Packers. It's very hard for me to keep them out, but I could see them, they've suffered a bad loss. College football playoff committee. Bad loss to the Chargers, and then they barely win against Carolina. Yeah. So kind of risky. Who are your top 4?
I mean, if we're doing it this way,
who am I missing? I'm missing someone, aren't I?
If we're splitting up 2 AFC, 2 NFC, that's. I mean, one's New England. What are you doing, Steve? One's New England. 2.
I don't think they have the most impressive resume.
That's
I think
fine.
Seattle has that for sure. They just beat their last undefeated team.
The worst part about the college football playoff committee is they're going to put Nick Saban in there, regardless of how good they're. Nick Saban might go 4-35 this year, and they'll still.
That's fine. That's fine. All
so they're 1. Number 2, boom, Seattle Seahawks. Big strength of schedule with that huge win last night. 3, we're going with the Ravens, and 4. Let's get A-Raj in there because that's a name that the people want to see in the playoffs. No one cares about Jimmy G. Like, let's be honest. Jimmy G, dude, he's not good. He's a bad quarterback.
I didn't say Jimmy G, but their defense is
really
good.
But I'd rather see Aaron Rodgers, and because the NCAA is corrupt, I'm also corrupt, so I'm putting the Green Bay Packers in there.
Ryan didn't follow the rules at all. He did not act like a college football committee. It's fine. I win that. I win the touchdowns. I win the whole game.
Fine.
I win Battle of the Trenches Week 11. Steve 2.0 on Twitter is your champion. Week 11 Battle in the Trenches. You can follow Ryan on Twitter at Bootleg Fantasy.
I mean, you produce the show anyway, so you can write whatever you want.
Subscribe to our channel, like this video, leave a comment, ask a start sit question, or go to our Twitter at Climb the Pocket, ask a question to the link of this video, and we'll answer every single one. I know Ryan's been answering people in the comments on YouTube right here, but go ahead and check out the rest of our videos, even though they'd be completely irrelevant because of their past weeks. But please subscribe to our channel. I really appreciate the support. Ryan, you got any last-second advice for Week 11?
Just don't tinker before or after Sunday at 10:30 in the morning. Don't touch your lineup. So
my advice is don't suck. See you next week.